Okay, you all good? Let's do it. Hello and welcome to the B2C Lead Generation Podcast. We're going to be looking at co-registration today in what marks a sort of small milestone in our fledgling podcast career. In the sense, we've got our first international guest in the form of Mr. Hein van Vroenhoven. First off, Hein, how was my pronunciation? Was that correct or close to being correct?
That's pretty good. Pretty good.
I'll take that. I was actually really nervous about that as we started. So for people who are listening and not watching this, it looks like there's a little bridge behind you. What's that a picture of? Is this your home office that we can see?
Yes. Yeah.
And what's the working from home situation like in Amsterdam? Are you all in lockdown too, or?
Yes, we're still in a partial lockdown here. Everybody still requested to work from home if possible. And within our industry, that's of course easy to do. And I deal with companies from around the world, mainly with the UK, but also across Europe and even outside of Europe. So I was working online in one way or another. Anyway.
Yes, I think most people spoke to have actually quite enjoyed it. It's worked quite well for our industry. So, as a way of introduction for people listening, I just want to explain Hein has years and years of experience in the industry, having been a director of many large lead gen and publishing companies, both here in the UK and in the Netherlands. He is currently the country manager for the UK at Response Concepts, a hugely successful permission marketing agency based in Amsterdam. Firstly, Hein, just by as form of introduction, can you intro how you got into the Co-Reg side of things?
I first got into lead generation through a Dutch company, which was a large direct marketing company, and they had an operation in the UK, and they asked me to come over and set up and run their lead generation business. This was still back in the days that a lot of the business was offline, but it was in a way it was the same model, but then it was basically an offline model, but it was a collaborative approach. So the costs was all shared by loads of companies. I then moved on to another company, RDP, and from there on I set up my own company, Response Link. This was back in 2008. By then, the online lead generation model was coming up, and we jumped into it. And we had a successful business over a number of years, sort of migrating the offline model to an online model.
What was how did you do it offline before you went online?
This was through the publication of booklets. It was an A5 booklet, let's say, containing 8 or 16 pages with a reply card in the middle. We would ask consumers to fill out, and
so
this created
it was like a survey, right? So they go through and tick it.
Yeah, in a way, and it has this multiplier effect. So consumers, we make it easy for consumers to tick a number of brochures or catalogs back in the days that they could request, and it was an easy method for consumers to fill out, and this then was migrated to an online model.
And how did I'm just curious about it because I've seen this in one company once. It was getting surveys from airlines, when people filled it in. Did you have like a big machine that used to feed all the sheets into, and then it'd automatically get the answers and then spit the...
Yeah, all the reply cards would be collated by a fulfillment house, and they would scan the cards, and this would then be automatically updated into a database, and we could send out the leads the very next day.
Wow. And just because I'm curious, what was the response, or I suppose what was the quality difference like between then and now, do you think? Was it higher because the intent was more, because of this like physical entity you had to fill in things, or?
Well, we always had the issues of intent, of course, and quality of data. I suppose you could say that the quality of data was I would say it's on par with the data that is being generated online now. We just need to make sure with online, you have more methods to ensure that we address the publication to the right audience. So you have more tools to ensure that the quality is on par. But yeah, I mean, you could say that more was asked from the consumer to actually fill out this card and walk up to a mailbox, because that's the main barrier. Yeah.
Yeah.
But, so online it's easier to respond, of course. So it's up to the publisher to ensure that we put the right sort of measures in place to ensure that the data that is being generated is as good as it can be. And there are loads of techniques available these days. You may well know a Datable, Simon, to ensure that the data is as good as it can be.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
So as we've been doing this time, we've kind of been picking experts from the various industries and doing different types of lead generation. And one thing we kind of asked them all is what makes their type of lead generation specifically unique. So how is Co-Reg different to other types of lead gen, and what is the unique angle for it?
Okay, I mean, co-registration, I suppose, if you look at how this sits within the marketing mix, co-registration is all about impulsive responders versus more planned responders. Yeah? So if you're looking for something, if you know specifically what you're looking for, you go into Google, yeah? which is what is a planned response, But if you're looking to grow your client database beyond those consumers that are know what they're looking for, then you need to be looking at different methods to grow that sort of client database. And co-registration is an effective method of generating new clients. But it's all about this sort of pyramid model. The AIDA. The awareness, interest, desire, action. We move consumers up that sales funnel, and the sales funnel starts below. We detect an interest from a consumer in a particular product or service, that our clients bring to their attention, and it's from there on that they need to work those leads and move that particular consumer up the pyramid. So
it's an interesting point, actually. I suppose I guess rather than looking at it as like the quality of the lead generation, it's like there's potentially more impetus on the sales channel to then move the consumer to the next stage.
Yeah. I mean, it's obviously there are other methods to generate better qualified leads, but they come at a much they're a lot more expensive. So if you're looking to grow your prospect database of consumers who are expressing an interest in your product, then co-registration is a very effective method of doing so, because you keep the cost very low, because you share all those for sending out or creating the online landing pages to generate the traffic. All that cost is shared by all the clients that participate in that co-registration model. It's a collaborative approach.
Yeah, I think it might actually be worth, if possible, if you can explain to any listeners that aren't fully aware of what Co-Reg is, how it actually works, because then when we're talking about it, they can get much more of an idea.
Yeah. Well, but basically, I mean, co-registration means that there could be a particular site that consumers arrive on, and there are multiple offers being promoted by loads of different companies, and there could be telecom, it could be insurance companies, broadband companies, mobile phone companies. When the consumer go through that journey, when they go through the path, this is where these companies then offer their products and services. So so it's from a consumer point of view, that it's just a range of various offers that they can reply to, and it's just not a single communication that they are responding to from one particular company. So the costs are being shared, and by all these companies participating in this particular publication.
And what's because obviously you need a way to draw the visitors in, right? How do you typically do it in a Co-Reg site?
Yeah. So in order to generate the volumes that have been generated, and we're talking in the UK, for example, more than 100,000 registrations. So which are fairly large numbers. So the way to do that is to offer the consumer something. So there needs to be something in return. So usually this is a price draw of some sort. Yeah, it can be related to a particular product, but in general it's a price draw because that will generate the attention from consumers. They then will interact because they will want to win something, and they will then interact. They fill out their details. The proper consent is being obtained from the consumer. Of course, all in accordance with the GDPR. And consumers are then invited to go through the co-registration page.
Cool. Perfect explanation.
So,
I hope it makes sense.
You mentioned GDPR there and sort of, I guess, compliance. If you're sharing the data, is that something that is a bit of a challenge? And generally, what are the biggest challenges you face in co-regs?
Well, the proper consent needs to be obtained from the consumer, and consent needs to be in line with the GDPR rules that are in place ever since 2018. So luckily, I work for a sort of pan-European lead generation company, and GDPR is pan-European legislation. So the legislation is the same across all of the sites that are being operated. But no lead can be generated unless the consent has been obtained in a proper manner. Yeah, and this is also what all of our clients are looking for, because with the GDPR in place, they need to ensure that they are on the GDPR is in fact in place, because this is paramount in the industry. So without it, we wouldn't be able to operate.
Yeah. What other sort of challenges do you face in co-reg, would you say?
Yeah, it's all about the return on investment, of course, the ROI. So any company taking the data will over time look at the investment that was made and to see if enough customers have been obtained to offset the cost for generating those leads in the first place. It's all about generating new clients for all of these companies, which is why I do a lot of business with broadband companies in the UK, Virgin, Sky, the telecom companies, Vodafone, O2, the energy companies. All of those companies are looking for ways of generating new clients in the most cost-effective manner. And in terms of generating big scale number of leads on a consistent basis, day in, day out, month in, month out, on a large scale, co-registration is an effective method of doing so.
Do you think co-sponsor, for example, has affected co-reg thing?
Again, it's a matter of how large you want to scale up. If I can generate 100,000 registrations on a monthly basis, then for one particular, that's number of consumers going through the path, registering themselves with their personal details. From there on, they go onto the co-registration page. Depending on the offer, there's a percentage of those consumers will fill out a particular question. So assume it's 20% if it's an easy offer, or it's easy to fill out. That means 20,000. If you have a need for 40,000 leads every month, because that sits within your capacity to within your call center, you're going to have to look at something else. You might be looking, of course, at some of the other co-registration companies out there in the market. You might be looking at other options. At all times, you need to make use of data that's been fully opted in, and co-sponsoring is a
good point. Yeah, it's the demand effectively has driven it rather than it driving itself. Yeah, I get you.
Yeah.
So this isn't co-reg specific, Hein, but myself and Simon, we talk to lead generators all over the world, and we kind of have quite a good idea of what areas are doing well and where it's quite thriving. And one thing we notice is within the Netherlands in general, there seems to be a really strong lead generation industry, like disproportionately so. Do you have any idea why that might be, or why it seems to do so well there and be such a big industry?
It's like Croatia. It's like Croatia in football, right? It's like hardly any people, but for some reason they do really well.
I think it's a coincidence. it has nothing to do with the fact that, because I went to the UK many years ago, and I even after I left, this sort of this online model, the co-registration model also took place, that took shape in Holland. I think it's just a coincidence. The fact, of course, helps that Holland is quite an international country. It's all based in and around Amsterdam. We can tap into loads of people from across the world that work for these companies, because it's a sales. For each of the countries that we operate, we have a sales team in place. So we have the local guys for the Spanish market. The German guys for the German market. The French guys that work in or that live in Amsterdam work for the French market. So it's tapping into that. That made it happen. I guess it's the international outlook that Holland has, because the Dutch market needs to expand beyond its own markets, because the Dutch market is only small. So if you want to grow your business, you're almost obliged to look outside of Holland. And this is, I think, the main reason why these companies sort of popped up in Holland.
It's interesting, though. We were talking to Josh Littler last week about affiliate networks, and he was saying that when you do business in different countries, you see some stereotypes that play out, like the Germans are really efficient and the Spanish are like manana. But the Dutch have always had this like global mentality. I mean, even like, if you go back to the 1600s when they were merchants all over the world, and they had this, like you said, global outlook, and it just applies in the lead generation as well.
Maybe. Yeah, they say that the first stock market, was set up in Amsterdam. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Who says that? Everyone in Amsterdam?
No, that's a fact, Simon. Yeah.
We'll get on Google after the call.
Just to look it up. But Holland has always been an international sort of trading place. So, it's a set of coincidences, but also that Holland needs to look beyond its market.
Do you see differences not in the way business is done, but in the way that the leads that you send to different countries are treated? So either in terms of performance or the price, or the way they deal with them, or their responses to them. So I don't know, like in Italy or in Singapore or in the Netherlands or the UK, do you notice differences?
The main difference is the competitive environment, and the competitive environment, for example, in the UK, and compared to Italy and Spain, is that there are a lot more competitors in the co-registration model in the UK, which drives costs down, prices down. Consumers are more used to these type of media, so it drives costs down. But at the same time, there are a lot more companies making use of the co-registration model in the UK, also in Holland for that matter, and in the US. There's less companies making use of this model in countries such as Italy, which is also why the rates, for example, are a lot more competitive in the UK versus countries such as Spain and Italy. But Italy and Spain still have massive growth potential.
I've noticed a difference in technology as well, though, right? Like
it's the adaptation of technology that's probably is lacking a little bit.
Yeah.
For example, give you an example. Germany. In Germany, the Germans always a little behind, aren't they? In a way. But API, sending of data via API, so sending data real time. Consumer that interacts on the landing page submits their details. Typically in the UK, we send that data via an API. So that from the moment of submitting, it takes a second to arrive in the call center, ready to be called by a sales agent. In Germany, typically this is done by overnight CSV delivery. So it takes them longer to adapt new technology.
But that's because it's one of the things that we talk about constantly, right? Is speed. So especially in lead generation, because if someone sticks their hands up and says, "Yes, I'm interested in a product or service," however you're going to contact them, if it goes into a call center or into an ESP, or if you're going to post something out and whatever. Yeah. The number one thing behind making sure it's a real human being, so getting all the validation right, is just the speed that you're going to contact them at. So I wonder, is in Germany, for example, well, I've got two questions behind this. So in Germany, for example, if it's a 24-hour CSV, because I see that in the UK as well, right, where people will do that with certain types of data. And the responses are definitely lower. So their lead generation must be like hamstrung from the outset, right? Or is it just the way the market works that they're so used to it? Like, how do you know what I mean? Is Germany just now, does their lead generation just not work because of that?
No, it's not that it just doesn't work. I'm not quite sure why. I mean, it's they haven't been able to adapt that quickly in Germany. I think we will see a gradual sort of migration into API in Germany as well. It's inevitable, but no, they can still make those campaigns work. And funny enough, there's still also some companies in the UK still making use of CSV deliveries. It's also to do with capacity. So if you don't have the capacity to follow it up in a real-time environment, then there's no point. You may as well get the CSV delivery. But yes, I mean, it's general knowledge and it is generally accepted that if you can follow up the lead as soon as you can, the better it is. Yeah.
And my other question around that was because there could be seen as slightly less intent in the Co-Reg lead. Is speed as important as it is for, like, I don't know, Facebook form fill, for example, like on your own landing page? Because you're right, I see a lot of call centers in the UK, for example, batching Co-Reg leads in and then 24 hours later calling it as part of the thing. And they're used to like a certain level of performance based on that. Do you think that performance would increase hugely or a little bit if they API'd it straight into the dialer?
Yeah, I mean, it would definitely help, of course, because the intent of a consumer is there. So as soon as, if you're a consumer, you're interacting on a site and you're expressing an interest. If you then receive a phone call, let's say a couple of minutes later, that interest is still fresh at mind. So then it's a lot easier to interact with that consumer. If you leave that lead for, let's say, 24 hours, that lead will go cold, like in any prospecting business. So it is absolutely essential to make the most out of these leads if you can follow them up as soon as you can.
Do you ever like refuse to work with companies, or the blame's shifted back onto them because of the speed that they contact the Co-Reg leads at?
Yeah, I mean, it happens from time to time that I'm declining campaigns.
Yeah.
Also, because I don't think the expectations are realistic, or the products may not sit particularly well within the environment. This is because Co-Reg registration is very measurable. So I can set up a campaign for £500,000, but the objective is to work with those clients over a long-term period. To form part of their acquisition model. That's why it is important that there's good interaction with the advertiser or the client and the publisher. So what we're looking at is to ensure that the proposition is right. Consumers will understand what the proposition is, what's in it for me, what's the value proposition, why should I respond to that particular Co-Reg. How quickly can we turn those leads around? It's an interaction with the publisher and the advertiser, and that's an ongoing process.
Yeah.
So yes, I'm turning things down if I don't think we can make it work, because it would be a waste of time for everybody involved. And I think it's also the responsibility of someone in this industry to tell a client, look, I think there are better methods. Why don't you try this? Why don't you? There are other ways of obtaining those objectives.
Yeah.
So you mentioned broadband and utilities as industries where you did a lot of work in, but are there any other particular niches or verticals where you think co-registration works especially well, Hein?
Well, we work with emailers. There's life insurance. There's well, we used to work with a lot of travel industry, email newsletter sign up. There's lots of industries or verticals that we can work with, but I would say the majority of leads are being generated for energy, utility, broadband, mobile phone, insurance. Yeah, but there's always new products that come up. PPI, of course, was a big industry that the market benefited from.
Yeah.
I was looking at the Response Concepts website, and there's a really interesting quote on it that says, "Lead generation has not reached its full potential yet," and that kind of struck me. I kind of wondered what the full potential is, what you think that looks like, and how do we get there?
Did you write that quote, Hein?
It could have been mine. Could have. Yeah. No, I agree with that quotation. It hasn't reached its full potential yet. There's loads of things that can be done. It's optimizing the consumer journey. It's optimizing the value proposition of the consumer. What's in it for me, and if we can combine that with the current techniques that we have in place, have a good lead management system in place, being able to strip out as much data as you possibly can by ensuring that the data is properly validated. So obviously the market is making use of the HLR validation for the mobile number to ensure the number is correct. It's the email ping validation, the path validation. But we need to look beyond those standard validations and look at other type of validations. How can we enrich a particular address? Can we add particular features to that address? Do we know what the residential status is of that address? Can we create scoring models for our clients? So in essence, can we say, okay, call center, here's a list of 1,000 leads that were generated, but we score those leads and we tell them the top 10 leads or the top 10% leads, we give them the highest score. So you might want to put your best sales agents on those leads. And we do that because we have detected certain characteristics on that particular address, which seem to suggest that they are more likely to convert. So these are the type of things that I think the market is looking at. And there's lots of other real-time validation processes that we can have a look at. So in order to generate the best possible leads for our clients and also rank them.
Yeah, I was thinking because it's interesting, in Germany a lot of the leads are double opt-in, right? So the consumer signs up to several Co-Reg and they bang an email out to them, and then they confirm their opt-in to the individual Co-Reg.
Yeah.
So this is few years ago, we ran for a sort of international airline company some Co-Reg all over the world actually, and the ones in Germany, because of the double opt-in, there was a definite improvement just from those Co-Reg. So I was wondering if that might become more of a thing for premium Co-Reg leads in the future, to create that greater intent as well behind the user. Do you think that'll stay in Germany, or do you think it will?
Double opt-in is something in Germany that the market has, in general, accepted as a way of generating response. It limits the amount of leads, of course, that can be generated. If you do a double opt-in, either by an email confirmation, then there's a large amount of consumers who will not reconfirm that lead, and it might be for various reasons. They filled in an email address they don't have access to, or an incorrect email address, even though it was validated. They may not have direct access to their email account. If it's a Gmail account or Hotmail account, they need to go into different accounts, and they forget about it. But yeah, in Germany, it's still about 50 to 60% of those consumers will make the initial request, that are reconfirming their lead. So it's all about, you know, making sure that the number of leads that a company wishes to receive, you know, sits in line with the capacity. But yeah, but there are also other ways, of course, making sure that you strip out those type of leads of consumers who are not showing intent. Yeah? And there are other ways of stripping those out. But a reconfirmation email is, of course, a very precise way of doing it. Mm. Yeah, because it requires an action from the consumer beyond the first initial interest that they express. Yeah,
yeah, makes sense.
Well, one thing I just want to come back to there, Hein, is you mentioned enriching leads and lead enrichment and lead scoring and things like that. So are you using machine learning to do that, or is that something you're looking
into? No, we're not using machine learning, but I've been told there's some companies out there who do good machine learning, you know, artificial intelligence. But yes, I mean, this should be part and parcel of lead generation going forward. Being able to make predictions on large volumes of data coming through, and then sifting through them and concentrating on those areas where you know the best conversions can be obtained. It's the old 20-80 rule. You know, 20% of your, or 80% of your conversions come from 20% of your data. So that applies in co-registration as well. So the more we can do in general to strip out leads that do not show great intent, the better the conversions could be. And those consumers who are not showing as much intent as others, they can go into a different program, you know, because they sit lower in the sales funnel. They are suspects. So this is where we need to. This is where the industry then needs to work on educating those people, providing them with information, and then slowly moving them up of that up the sales funnel, the sales pyramid.
One thing that we've, and this is completely unintentional, it's just come up as part of the podcast, but it's something that at Databall we've, it's been like a mantra that we've been using for years now, is transparency. How do you think that applies to the Co-Reg industry or Co-Reg sites in particular? So what clients access and see, and you know, their relationship and things, because there's a lot of brokers in Co-Reg, right? I'd say more than any other lead generation industry. Maybe offshore tele leads a lot as well, but Co-Reg in particular, there's a lot of brokers. So the sales funnel can be like, it's generated by, say, Response Concepts, and then goes to like 20 brokers, and then you might work with a bunch of advertisers directly as well.
Yeah, if you're talking about transparency, this is of course something that the market demands, you know, which is fully understandable, which is what is being provided. There's of course a lot of middlemen in the market, lots of brokers, agencies, for various reasons. You know, also the end client may not wish to deal with loads of different companies, so they employ one particular broker that takes, you know, that manages the whole flow of leads coming into them, because you know it could be as many as 20 different type of companies that they're dealing with. So it's also a capacity issue for those type of companies. So it makes sense sometimes employing someone who understands the full scale of the opportunity, who knows the inside, the outsides of the market, and can manage that whole flow. But yeah, I also prefer, you know, it's also very useful, of course, of talking to clients direct, because this is where you get the real insights. But you know, there's a lot of expertise in the market, and companies may sometimes not wish to take that expertise on board but to buy it, you know, to employ someone, a company, to do actually for them. You know, so do
you think it affects transparency though, or is in 2020, is it just so like ubiquitous that everybody's transparent in the Co-Reg industry, there's not anything to worry about, or could it do better? What are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, it's a very incestuous market, as you know, Simon. So you know, everybody sort of seemed to know each other. So that in itself already implies that you need to be open, you need to be transparent. You know, I've been in this industry for a long time, and I couldn't be if I wasn't transparent, if I wasn't honest with my clients and with my colleagues and people that I used to work with and now working somewhere else on the client side or on the supplier side. It's an open market, but if you're asking me, can we do better? Yes, of course we can do better. But it's an evolving market. It's still a young market. It's still evolving. Technology forms a great part of it. You know, you're at the forefront of that as well. There's still a lot of options that can be developed. I still think, and I'm at the forefront as well because I deal with all the clients for the UK. I feel there's a strong demand for data. There's a strong the outlook I think is looking very good. Lots of companies expressing an interest to generate more clients. So the client acquisition model is still very much there, and it's up to us, the industry, to ensure that the products that we developed are the right sort of ones that fit within that cost model, and also fits within the possibilities and the legalities of how we do it. Yeah. And the whole legal part of lead generation and data is of course very important. It's a very important point that all of our clients are very aware of, and they will only deal with those type of companies who have got it right. And
one thing I've found going back years is because we've been talking about Co-Reg as being seen as like the lower intent of lead gen, right? And so it's maybe not taken as seriously as, say, like premium lead coming in on like a Facebook a landing page from Facebook, or PPC lead, where you're paying £20 just to generate it. But the Co-Reg technology and to build a Co-Reg company is like an order of magnitude or a factor of about 20 times more difficult to build a business and build the technology to run a Co-Reg site. And that's what I always find interesting about it. So even though the leads are seen as whatever, to actually be able to do it and implement it, I've got first-hand experience of this, right? Because a bit like you, one of the first companies I worked at in lead gen in 2005, I think, had a Co-Reg site. So it got like direct exposure to all the technology and stuff behind it. They're very complex, aren't they? They're not easy to build. It's something people always underestimate and think, in a month we'll have a Co-Reg site and we'll, not pay very much. And then 6 months later, 200 grand later, they've still not got one. I've seen it so many times, it's unbelievable.
I mean, if you look at the market itself, there haven't been many new entrants into the market, in terms of new companies. So yes, lots of companies are trying it to build something, but it also requires experience, knowledge about the market, solid direct marketing experience. So it is not that easy. Obviously, it's not. It's made, I guess, more easy with good technology platforms that companies can tap into, because that's the hub. So it's the hub for generating the leads. Generating the leads is one thing. Passing them on in the right manner to the end client is of course the other, and having all the registration, having all the management tools in place to ensure that all the leads are performing. It's within the KPIs that you set. So yes, I mean, like with any business, it's it looks always easier from the outside, but it's a lot of work. It's a daily grind, and I'm doing it for quite a few years, but still very much enjoying it. But
your hair's not going grey, Hein, and you've still got a lot of it, so it's not affected you that much.
Well, I don't know. Maybe it's more from the inside. Yeah.
You're rotting from the inside out.
Maybe that's But No, I mean, but with anything, you need to enjoy what you do, and I still have a lot of passion for the job I'm doing, and there's lots of the potential for co-registration or collaborative marketing or any other term that you may apply to the industry that we're in. It's still a growing business if done correctly, and we will see companies dropping out because they don't provide what the market needs, and other companies will evolve. And it's about the technology, and it's also making sure that the propositions that we have are also appealing enough to the consumers that we approach. Because it's without the consumers, without the public at large, there's no business. It's those consumers that we need to appeal for first. They need to respond to the offers that we put out to them. Those offers need to be interesting enough for them to respond to it. And those offers are coming from our clients, and we need to work with our clients to ensure that the propositions are presented in the right manner. And co-registration is different. It's consumers will give us a particular offer. They will give it 1 or 2 seconds. If it's not clear within two or three seconds, they move on to the next thing. This is what defines the industry.
I think it's interesting. Before we wrap up, I had a conversation with a guy last week, the week before, works at a financial lead gen company. And I've thought this, but he articulated it really well, which is basically he's got 2 clients. So one is the prospect or the consumer, and the other is his actual client. He said that's the way we run the business. We have 2 clients and 2 masters that both run the business, and
absolutely
is important. And it's interesting you've sort of touched on that just then as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, there's no business if you don't have both of them, and it's often disregarded. But consumers are incredibly important. If we're not in touch with those consumers anymore, the response rates are not going to be there, which will push up the rate for a lead, and will make it it won't be cost effective. Meaning the business is slowly going to die. So we always need to make sure that we generate the best possible leads from the market, but it's ensuring that appeal is correct.
Yeah, good point.
Just I just want to come back to one thing you said at the start of that, Hein. You said experience, knowledge, kind of the most important things in a way. And
it's easy for me to say with all the years I have in the market. No?
Well, yeah, but I just think anyone, I think that's a nice line to kind of underscore this call, this podcast, because I think anyone listening will take away those two ideas, your experience and your knowledge. And I think this has been really beneficial, and hopefully everyone listening will really appreciate it. And I know we do. We thank you so much for talking to us. But the insights we've got today has been it's been great, and those 2 factors, that experience and knowledge, has been I think that's definitely a nice way to wrap this up and kind of underscore this call, because I think that's what's really shone through. So I just want to thank you really, Hein, and say we really appreciate your call, talking to us, and all your insights into the world of co-registration.
Okay. Yeah, it was my pleasure. Anytime.
Yeah, thank you, Hein. And we'll as we do more and more podcasts, we'll no doubt get you on again at some point. Maybe dive into anything new you're doing at the time.
Yeah, it will be my pleasure, Simon. It's a great industry, and I think we need to promote it and show companies the options and the benefits of co-registration, because quite often it's put into a negative light, but there are lots of benefits to it if done correctly. And that's what you and I do. That's what we're trying to do day in, day out.
Definitely. Okay. Well, cheers, Hein. And
okay.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks, Hein.
Okay.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to the B2C Lead Generation Podcast, the show for serious lead generators. Be sure to hit subscribe to hear more from those at the very cutting edge of the lead gen world.